Hi everybody, it's Marcy and welcome to take 2 of part 6 of my File Folder Folio Journal construction series. Like I said, this is take 2. Today we're going to be working on the final pieces I'm going to put onto the panels. And to start with, I have a 5x8 piece of the hanging file folder that I've been using, and I rounded the corners. This is the back of it. I rounded the corners and I drew a line 5/8 of an inch from the left and right sides, 5/8 of an inch from the top and bottom, and 1 1/4 inch across the center. And the way I did that was I actually made a couple of marks at the 4-inch mark, which would be halfway, and then went 5/8 of an inch on either side. And what that does is that leaves me 2 boxes. Each of them is 2 3/4 inches tall by 3 3/4 inches wide. And that'll give me nice little windows. Well, the reason this is take 2 is because I went ahead and cut out the first one without having turned the camera on. Fortunately, I actually was reaching up, so I'm going to go ahead and cut out the second one while I'm talking. I actually reached up to pause the video while I cut out the second one, and that's when I realized I'd not hit the record button. So, that's why I say take 2. You'd think after making as many videos as I've now made that I would remember to turn on the record, that I would remember to hit the record button. But it happens. Okay. So I'm just cutting this out to make a couple of picture frames. We're going to be putting on 3 panels today. So this video, just to try to keep it as short as possible, I will be doing lots of pausing and stuff like that of the video. And we'll be jumping back and forth between panel items. Some of them will need some sewing after they've had a little bit of work done, but I'd rather only pause once to go to the sewing machine. So we're going to be jumping back and forth a little bit. All right. So then there is my now 5x8 with 2 picture frames, basically. And I've got 2 pieces of acetate. They're each cut to 3 inches by 4 inches that will go right over the top of that. You can glue those if you'd like. I like using my, this is just Tombow Dots adhesive. I like using that just because then I don't have to risk glue seepage underneath the acetate. Now the acetate I'm using is a transparency, but any kind of acetate will work to make your little frames, of course. Getting tape all over my mat. Which is fine, I just don't necessarily want the tape on the front of my frame. Alright, and that stuff's sticky. I guess that's its purpose, huh? So I'm going to lay that down. And obviously on these are on the back, so they don't have to be perfectly straight. You just want to be sure that they're covering the entire thing. All right. Now the other thing I like to do on these is on the edges of my acetate. I like to put a little bit of washi tape down. This will not be, obviously it's on the back of the frame, and so you won't see it at all. But I just like to do that to be sure that nothing gets caught on that acetate. Okay, so I got all my washi tape down, and if I'd done it a little more neatly, that could actually be the front of the frame, but this is what I will be using as the front of my photo frames. Now, this one I'm going to set aside because I will be going back and sewing around the edges more as a decorative thing than anything else. So I'm going to set that one aside for now. I'll set it over here in my sewing stack. And we're going to move on to something that's going to be a little more noisy. In yesterday's video, I showed you the paper bag and told you that I may go ahead and Mod Podge it, which I did. I just Mod Podged some napkin onto it. But there's something I saw the other day, and I can't remember for certain who it was. I think it was Jessica at Paper Terrace, but I can't swear to it. And she was talking about using a white candle that she had just gotten at Dollar Tree to seal her Mod Podge with wax, and that would help prevent it from being sticky in the journal. And I thought this would be the perfect thing to try it on. So I'm just taking this white candle and I don't even know, I probably put way too much on there. But we're going to give it a try anyway. Okay, here's where the noisy part comes, because I'm going to use my heat tool, and I will try to remember to remove the audio from it, but if I forget, plug your ears. Okay, that didn't take too long. I really like the way that looks. Of course, now the wax needs to dry a little bit. Oh, but I can see, yeah, I can feel the coating of wax on it, which is fabulous, because that would, if you have sticky Mod Podge, and I found sometimes my Mod Podge isn't tacky at all. Sometimes it is. I think it depends on the weather. But that is a great way. I want to see if any of it. Okay, on this one, none of the wax bled through, but I can see on regular paper, like, you know, this has a coated inside, but I can see on regular paper how some of the wax might kind of seep through. But, oh, that feels wonderful. Okay, so got that done. That's almost ready to go into the journal. I'm going to do a little more to it, but want to give that wax a minute to dry and reharden. So, actually, I'm not going to. I'm going to go ahead. I mean, it was such a thin layer. Okay. So I just very simply want to add a little bit of lace to top and bottom of this bag. I know this is, I think, actually the first actual decorating I've done, but I want to do this before I put the bag into the journal. So I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac for this. Obviously, I won't be able to sew this lace on because it's on a paper bag. But that will also give me a chance. The reason I wanted to go ahead and do it now was to see how any wax I may have gotten, how the wax, words are hard. Quoting Kara Brandon, words are hard. I want to see how the wax may affect the Fabri-Tac's adherence. I don't think it will. I mean, Fabri-Tac is a pretty relentless glue, but if I do this now, then I can set it aside for a minute and check back on it before I actually attach it to the journal. That way, if there's a problem, I can address it before it goes into the journal. All right, so pull that off. But at this moment, just feeling the way that, and it was just a thin wax overlay, but it feels fabulous, and I can see okay, so that's all I'm going to do to that little paper bag. So now let's go ahead and, okay, I won't be sewing that. That one's drying, so we'll set him right there. All right. Okay, so we've started our frames. We did the paper bag, and now I'm going to use 2 lunch sacks, and I'm going to make a clutch. So to do that, I'm going to take one of my paper bags, and I'm going to take that inside gusset folds, and I want them to come to the outside. And I want that to happen all up here where the triangle is, where the flat folds. I want all of that to move to the outside. Now, normally what I have to do is use my bone folder and kind of poke some of the corners. You basically have to encourage it to fold the opposite way that it was packaged. And you just have to kind of be patient and play with it. And you have to remember, paper bags are not necessarily squarely made. So don't get frustrated with it. All you can do is do the best you can. And like, I get my paper bags from Dollar Tree, and so they're not. And even if you look at all the bags in a package of paper bags that you've got, they're not going to all be uniform. At least that's been my experience. So I just encourage it to do what I want it to do. I've still got a bit of a fold there. I'm going to see if I can try it out. See, like this little corner is not cooperating real well, but all right. So then we get it. Basically, we just want, and see, even here, I've still got a little bit of a fold, and there's nothing I can do about that because that's right next to where it's glued. So then I'm just going to use my bone folder to flatten it out as much as I possibly can. Alright, now I'm going to take this flap and I'm going to fold it up to the top. And this is really where you can tell that your paper bag is not square. I've got it folded uniformly across the bottom, and yet look at the top. And this top flap, even if it's perfectly square, it's not going to match the top of the back one. It will always be a little shorter. And I haven't figured out exactly why that is, but I've never had one match up perfectly. And the first time I saw this done on YouTube, I can't even remember who it was. It's been so long ago. They said the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to put glue all over the shorter edge, because now I want to glue them together. All right. Now I'm going to fold my flap down, and you'll be able to tell that's where the two come together, but I want it to come deeper than that. And this is all just a judgment call. There is no specific measurement, but I like to have a little bit of the straight edge pulled down. Now on this side, it's going to be a little bit off because of the way that edge was, but that's okay. I mean, none of this is perfection. All right. Then I'm going to give that a good crease with my bone folder. And now I'm going to pull the top edge, or the other edge, the open edge, up to just below. I'm going to leave, maybe a 1/4 of an inch gap between my new fold line and the edge of that bag, and I'm going to crease it down. Get my bone folder in there so I can get a good fold on that. Okay, now at this point, normally what I do is, I collage my bag at this point. I'll collage this, I'll collage this, collage the inside flap, and depending on how I'm going to use it, I may collage the back. For this one, I'm not going to. Because I've been using that sort of olive green of the hanging file folder, and I've got the brown glassine bag, I'm going to leave mine as a bare brown paper bag because I think that will best suit this journal. So, now I'm going to take my second paper bag, and I'm temporarily going to leave it folded. But I am going to take this flap and bend it back just to get it out of my way. Now I'm going to look at how tall my front flap ended up being, and it's right at 4 1/4. So I want to cut this to double the 4 1/4, so 8 1/2, but I'm gonna back it off like 1/16 or 1 tick mark. And then I'm just gonna pull my trimmer out. And take that off. I won't be using this, although I could. I'll actually hang on to that until I'm sure I don't want to use it. Okay. Now that I've got that cut, I'm going to take the gussets on this one and pull them out as well. And I find it easier just to grab the inside gusset and fold it the opposite direction just to pull it out. And then I'll lay this down and use my bone folder again to encourage it to flatten out a little bit. And then what we're going to do is we will fold these two open ends together. Like so. And these will become inside pockets on our clutch. But before I go any further, I'm not going to collage the outside like I normally do, like as I've already explained. But I am going to now run all of the frames and this over to the sewing machine. And just strictly for decorative, this is not necessary at all. But I'm going to run a stitch up this side and a stitch up this side. Like I said, that is strictly decorative. And then the same thing, I'm going to run stitching from this bottom left corner all the way around and down to the bottom right corner, leaving this open. So I'm going to do that, and then I will come right back. Okay, so I got all my sewing done. I went ahead and sewed a little bit around my frames. So that's ready to go into the folio. And I sewed up these two sides. And I sewed around the edge of this. I did go ahead and add a small piece of lace trim to it. I just decided after I'd paused the video to add that before I sewed, so it could be actually sewn down instead of just glued over the top. Okay, so now I'm trying to think. I don't want to put that in quite yet. I've got two circles that I cut out with my 1-inch circle punch, and I've got a brad. So I'm going to take one of the circles, because this is just a brown paper bag, so it's not super strong. I'm going to put a closure on here, but I want to go ahead and give it a little more strength. So one of the circles I'm just going to glue directly to the brown paper bag, just like I said, just to try to give it a little more strength and security. And I'm just going to line that up right there. So that's where my closure is going to go. So now, got that done, I'm going to pull out my nifty little phone book. If you can do it, you can use a crocodile or something, a hole punch to do this. I find it easier. I'm going to punch a hole in these. I find it easier when I'm punching on teeny tiny circles like that. When I use my crocodile or anything else, it's nigh on to impossible for me to get the hole centered. And even though doing it by hand, it's still not going to be perfectly centered. It will certainly be closer than if I use the crocodile. So I'm just using some phone book pages to keep me from punching through the entire bag. And like I said, this still isn't going to be perfectly centered, but it won't be as glaringly off-center either if doing it this way. Okay. So now I've got my hole punched. So I can pull my little phone book out. Put my little brad through it. And I'm going to open my brad, but as I'm doing it, I want to try to leave a little bit of give in the top circle and brad, because I'll be using baker's twine, and I want it to be able to get around that top circle. So you're probably not going to be able to see really well, and this isn't the easiest. This brad has such tiny little legs on it. Let's see if I can get them at least started. Okay, so I got my legs kind of started, and I'm just going to kind of pull up on the circle and the brad as I'm straightening the legs. I wonder if that might work a little better. Okay, I just put my bone folder under it, right up against the brad. Now straighten it out. Just like I said, to leave a little movement in that top circle and brad. And then, again, not necessary, but I am going to use some of this washi tape just to put over the back of that brad. Because if it starts moving, I don't want it to poke or get caught, or anything to get caught on it. So, and when I'm doing that with the washi tape, like this one that I've been using throughout, it's a washi tape I don't use, so I'm not doing it for decorative purposes, so I don't particularly care which washi tape it is. All right. So now our little clutch has a closure on it. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run glue down my fold line. I'm just going to run a thin strip of glue down that center line. And then I'm going to take my second bag and I'm just going to place it right in that fold. And that is probably not absolutely, well, I know it's not absolutely essential because I made one last night and didn't add that glue there. But just gives it a little extra. Okay. So now we've got this, but now we need to close our clutch up and create our pockets. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to run glue from the top of this opening, and bear in mind, this is the back flap, and here's my openings, okay? So I'm going to run glue down roughly the center, and it can be a wide band of glue, but you don't want to go edge to edge. Meaning this edge to this edge, because if you do, that'll keep your pockets from expanding. So I'm just going to run some down there and glue it down. Now I've got my next set, so here's my first set of pockets. And it's now attached to the back of my clutch. Now I'm going to grab my second set of pockets, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. And I'm going to fold it down, glue it down. And I'm going to grab my last set, which is also the front of my clutch, and do the exact same thing again. Fold that over. Let's give everything a good squish and let it dry, at least for a moment. All right, and now you've got an expanding clutch. I just love that. Okay. So now I've got this, but I don't have anything yet to tie it around. So to make this, one thing I like on, I could just glue this down into my journal like this, and it would open up and I could use it like that. I prefer being able to lift it so that I can see into it like this. That's my own personal preference. So just like we've done with so many other things, I'm going to make a hinge. And to do that, I've got this is from the Dear Julie Julie's More Daisies kit. It's one of the large tags. It looks like 3 5/8 inches wide, and I've got it cut to 8 inches long. So I'm going to pull out my scoreboard, and I'm going to line it up this way because it's easier for me to score on the outside, and it's at 5/8. So I'm going to score it at 5/8, or turn it this way. I'm actually scoring at the 3-inch mark. So then when I turn it back around, I've got 5/8 over here and 3 inches over here. Now let me use my bone folder. And going both ways, folding it back and forth just to loosen that hinge up a bit. And I am going to go ahead and ink this white edge because it may show just a tiny bit. And to help it blend in better, if it does show a little bit, I'm just going to ink that edge up. Okay. Now I want to glue this right onto the back of my folio, and I'm trying to determine. I'm going to try it and we'll see how sturdily it holds. I am going to I'm going to try to leave this edge open just as an added little teeny tiny tuck spot. I don't know. I may end up deciding, no, I don't think that feels strong enough. But, so I'm going to glue the fold edge that I inked and up this side. And I think just for a little added security, I'll glue that edge a little ways up. You know, just 1/4 of an inch or so. And then, sorry, I need to be able to see this. And I'm going to center this as best I can between the top and the bottom. See, I'm already Probably should not have used the art glitter glue. All right, I got it though, I think. Yes, I got it. All right. Yeah, see, I'm already not sure that I'm going to like that because it's such a thin piece that it just it looks like I've just actually not glued it, as opposed to it actually being there for a functional reason. So I'm going to squeeze my glue tip back under there. Yeah, and sometimes you just got to try stuff like that. But yeah, it's just, if it were a larger thing there, then it would probably work fine. But that one's just, I mean, it's only 5/8 of an inch. So instead of looking like a tuck spot, it just looks like I've done sloppy at my gluing. Okay. So that is that. Then I've got, excuse me, I've got some baker's twine. And that I'm going to use for my closure. So wrap that around a couple of times, and just like I always do, I cut it a little longer than it needs to be, but I'd rather start out working with a little too much than a little too little. All right. I want to put this away because I want to use my Fabri-Tac. So, I am going to run some Fabri-Tac up the middle of this, which will become a tuck space, but before it does, it's also going to become the anchor for our closure. And you've seen me do this a number of times, just to help secure it, to help prevent other stuff from sticking to it, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to cut off a bit of washi tape. And I'm going to add some Fabri-Tac to my washi tape, just because I don't, you know, most of the others that I've done I could have glued, but they're not, I just didn't feel the need to, basically. And put that right over it. Now I can cut away my excess. If I can see it. Dadgummit. All right, there we go. And now what will happen is we will put this in the journal, and then when we open that, our clutch will lift up and we'll be left with a tuck spot. So, well, almost 2 tuck spots is actually how I would use it. And the other part of our closure will be held here, but that's what will allow the clutch to lift up and be used like this or like this, as opposed to having to use it laid down. But doing the closure this way will keep the clutch from flopping around on its hinge. All right, so let's get ready to actually put our stuff in our journal so that you'll better be able to see how that's going to work. So the frames, I want to go right here. And I'm actually going to use my Fabri-Tac. Okay, I want this side to be open. So I'm going to run glue across the top, down this side, down this side, and I am going to run a thin bead right down the center. And then I will lay those right on there. And I'm calling it a picture frame. I mean, I'll have journaling cards or something in there, but I like the see-through pockets, and this way I get two of them, one on top of each other. But what I think of every time I make one of these is great place for whoever receives this journal to add some photos, if they so choose. All right. And a lot of these items will be embellished a little more. I'm just showing the basic construction. So there's one. I probably need to square that up a little more. And then it will still open on this side here and this side here. Then I'm going to move over to this panel. And obviously we have the file folder, but I want this paper bag to go right there. I think that will be a great place for that paper bag. Now, just like we did with the clutch, I want the paper bag to be able to move some. So I'm not going to glue it right up to the edges. Now I'm doing a wider swath of glue, but I still want it to have some give to it. So I'm just going to run a wide swath of glue, but not right up to the edges. And that put in. Pick up my glue mess. And then by leaving those edges, it can still puff up and be filled with stuff. All right. Then over here on this one, we're going to put down the clutch. So for it, I'm going to put glue across only on what will become the tuck spot. I'm going to put glue on the top edge, down the hinge edge, and across the bottom there. Alright, so I've got my glue on there. I want to be sure all my strings are out of the way so I don't accidentally glue them down. Get that about where I want it. can lift this up. Don't have it quite straight. All right, so let's give that a second to set up. That's the only thing, I use my art glitter glue so much, except when I want a moment to move stuff. And that's when I go for, a lot of times, my Fabri-Tac, if I still need it to be a quick setup, but a little longer to move it than I get with the art glitter glue. Okay, so then that can close off like that. I need to make a little, since this is baker's twine, it will start unraveling, so I'm going to tie a little knot in that, clip that off. There, perfect. Okay, so see now that the way I've got that string on there, it's keeping that from pulling up so that when I go to close the journal, it's not going to flop around. And that's really, when you're building these kind of journals, that's really the one thing you have to watch for when you're laying stuff out is, how is it going to do when you open and close pages and stuff like that. And this one I'm still a little, I think that'll be all right though. The only thing I don't like is, I may end up changing my mind, because again, I wanted to leave it kind of so it could expand, but I may still need to add some, because to me now it just looks like it's barely hanging in there. So I don't know, but I'm going to leave it for right now, and I can decide that later. Okay, so the only thing we would have left is obviously all the decorating and embellishing. And then we would have this panel. But as I've previously said, I always leave a panel undone. And here's the reason. As I begin adding my ephemera, I mean, we haven't added the journal yet, and we haven't added any ephemera yet. And we're already getting full. Not full, but it's thickening. So once I get the ephemera made and loaded in, I want to see, what else do I need? Is there anything specific that I'm missing? Do I need one more pocket for something that I don't have yet or can't add to something? Most likely, this will end up being a belly band. But I don't want to decide that yet. So I'm not doing anything with that one. So the only thing we haven't done is the journal. And if you're watching this, you know how to make a journal. The only thing I would suggest, like in this one, because the file folder is 9x6, it can easily take a 8.5 by 5.5 inch journal. This one that I made for my last one was, looks like 8.25 by about 5.5. So I'm just going to use it. Normally I put about 12 to 15 pages in it, relatively thin, soft, pliable cover. And I don't do a lot of embellishing in the journal. I want to keep it pretty thin. But I do want to show you how I would. So I'm not going to make that as my journal as part of this series, but I want to show you. I just put them together with a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, very simply. Then with this particular one, I will just lay the ribbon over the center of it. I should have closed this up before I did that. Okay, so lay the ribbon over the center of it. Get it snugged in there the way I want it. And now I'm just going to take my ribbon at the top. And I want my bow to be on the outside, so I'm going to pull it snug. And let's check the inside to be sure we're nice and snug on the inside. It could be snugger. It could be snugger. And then I am going to tie a bow. And this will still need to be trimmed up, and I get that, but since I'm not done with it. And then I'll have a bow on the outside of my journal. And then my journal is held in, okay, but very removable. And the nice thing about this, just like the Midori style, is as the journal gets fuller and more bulky, although the precise center won't change much, but just in general, as the journal itself gets used and bulkier, you've got some play in your ribbon length to move with it. So, that, even though this is not the journal that will be staying in this, that is the actual construction of, or the way I construct my File Folder Folio Journals. And I absolutely love them. And everything here from here on out is just decorating what I've put in and adding the embellishments and the journal. And it's ready to go. And I know it's taken, I've done this in, 6 parts. In reality, to make it this far into making one of these takes 2 or 3 hours, for me, 2 or 3 hours, and that's after I've decided what I want to use, how I want everything laid out, so on and so forth, and just start systematically going through and making the base of it. And the rest is just cake, just making stuff to fill it in. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have any questions, please let me know. I am going to put at the end of this video, you'll see a playlist to the entire series that you will be able to go back and watch if there's something you want to see how I did it. And then my next video, I will be showing you a full flip through of my completed folio journal. So until next time, everyone, please have a great day. Stay safe, be healthy, happy crafting, and I will talk to you all very soon. Bye-bye.